Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Don't Praise the Machine. This is the internet's #1 comedy podcast about the ways that technology is shaping culture and so much more. And John Maloney, Tom York from Radiohead, is complaining about computers again. And what an irony, because once upon a time he was okay with computers.
That's good, yeah. I was racking my brains going, karma, please. That doesn't really do anything. But you got there.
Yeah.
It was staring me in the face. He had that real Pablo honey this week.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
That's his first. That's the
Yeah,
first.
but what is?
album, I
But
think.
what is Pablo? Is that a thing? Is it? What
I
does
don't
that
know.
even mean?
Who knows? Didn't matter in the early 90s. In fact, the less sense it made, the better.
Yeah.
So yeah, Tom York, a few others, Julianne Moore, the author Kazuo Ishiguro.
And that in itself is a weird mix. Like, guys,
It is.
you know who's on the same page about this? Tom York and Julianne Moore from Big
I wonder if they've ever
Lebowski.
met. Exactly. Let me give you some more names. Kevin Bacon, Max Richter, the ambient music producer.
Wow.
And your favorite, I know you loved his performance as Salieri, the embittered composer in Amadeus. That's right. It's F. Murray Abraham.
It's a very disparate mix of artists.
It is. It's an eclectic group of over 10,000 signatories from various parts of the creative artsy world. They've signed a joint letter this week, basically complaining about the use of their product, be it, songs, images, music, voice, to train AI. And this came to my attention. My kind of ears were up because one of our comedy heroes, Eric Wareheim, is on Instagram and of the great Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Great Job fame. And he now is just kind of an LA guy who likes, who gets into food and plants and things. And he had this, he's recently gotten obsessed with plants and potting plants basically in his house. And so he posted this little self-deprecating kind of classically absurd comedy reel about, here's my garden, here's what I love to put in my garden, here's how I do all the plants, here's how I'm just going to have to pause one sec while I change the network over. Here's how I get the design looking nice, blah blah blah. But at the start he had this kind of musical intro, and it was accompanied by various animated images about how he's a plant guy now and whatever. And he'd obviously used this AI software to kind of come up with he might have written the lyrics and then he'd gotten it to sing it basically on this generic tune and added various stupid images. And instead of being amused by this, quite a few people in the comments were annoyed by the fact that he had obviously made use of AI, which struck me as indicating that they were very sensitive about that issue in LA, because it was just this kind of stupid little reel. Like, it wasn't as though he'd made a feature film and heavily relied on AI. It was just like private use of this reel. But even then, it's obviously become taboo, at least among a certain cohort of his followers, to even make use of these products. And you can see why, because obviously people in LA, there'd be a whole army of, and we've kind of alluded to this on the show before, of people whose jobs are about to kind of get swallowed up by AI. And obviously everyone else will eventually potentially be subject to that same fate. But, in the immediate term, you got session musicians, you got illustrators and jingle writers and extras and all these people who may no longer be needed, editors, etc. That's all going to be potentially operationalizable by AI. If it's not already, then it will be very soon. So they're obviously up in arms about it. And then I saw they'd gotten together, over 10,000 of them, and signed this letter. And basically what they say is, look, generative AI needs people, it needs computing power, and it needs data. And, sometimes they're spending millions of dollars per engineer. They're spending a lot of money on their people. They're spending a lot of money on their models in terms of computing power, etc. But they're not they're not spending any resources on training data because they're basically just scraping the artists, our information for their own benefit. And I thought to myself, this is a blow to Don't Praise the Machine, because I think that this is the end of the road for AI. A letter from celebrities. I think that's all it's going to take. No, it just made me think, like, what do we, I mean, it just seems futile to me. It's like machine smashers in the Industrial Revolution going around to factories and trying to break things just because they're frustrated. It's like, well, okay, but what do you want people who are constrained by budgets not to save money? I mean, that's just not going to happen. And also, I wondered what you thought about that, but also, like, are they even right to complain about it? Because they've made money from their music and their films and whatever, their voices, and now they're saying, even though that's kind of out in the public domain, you can't even. I mean, if I was a singer and I was like, I'm going to learn how to be a good singer by just listening to hundreds of hours of Justin Bieber,
of Julianne Moore.
Exactly. Just gonna listen to Kazuo Ishiguro reading Remains of the Day audiobook. Yeah, and I thought, I mean, or if I read books, hundreds of books to be a good writer.
Yeah.
And then people were like, well, your style is just derivative of mine. Okay, fine. But, whatever. I can still write a book if I want. But they're obviously threatened by AI in a different way. And I'm not sure yet. I don't have a settled view on, like, maybe I don't see the point, but I will see it. Maybe there is a distinction there that I'm not appreciating, or maybe they're just whinging because that's what happens when there's a big change. There's always people who are left out and people who are pissed off by it.
Yeah. Whether it's right or wrong, I think what makes people particularly uncomfortable is the fact that it's going to be if something isn't done, which I don't think anything can be done. I tend to take the same view as you in that it seems like machine smashers in the Industrial Revolution, in that as a species we're just designed to come up with how to do the most with the least amount of energy. We've always done that since the dawn of time. And what makes people very uncomfortable is that there's going to be a huge power shift from, say, Tom York and Julianne Moore to the people that own these companies. And that's, I think, what makes people very uncomfortable. I think it's funny, actually. I think that question of whether or not it's right for the machines to be trained, I think, like you say, how different is it really to, as you say, to a human just learning from Tom York and then saying, I'm going to make a bunch of songs that are somewhat derivative of Radiohead, like so many bands have, and like Tom York did from other bands. But I think what people are really uncomfortable with the way that all of this technology is moving certainly in the last 20 years, is that the power is just becoming more and more and more centralized in the hands of less and less people, and they're scraping up all of the knowledge of us humans much quicker than they ever could before. Yeah. I don't know how you would functionally make anything that is going to compensate. I don't know. Do you just go, okay, Tom York, like you get Tom York and Julianne Moore, we'll just cut you a check for the rest of your life, and you don't have to do anything because maybe somebody puts in to a large language model, to some kind of generative AI thing, can you make me a character with the same kind of sass that Julianne Moore's Lebowski character had in The Big Lebowski, and then she gets a check for that? Like, I just don't know how it functionally is going to work. And also,
no, like, how would you apportion somebody's? Because you can't really unscramble if it's just kind of scraping all this data. Oh, well, there's probably that much. You get 1%. Probably got 1% Tom York. 1% Julianne Moore, because it's it's red haired, but it's also got a lazy eye, and it's singing about pain. And it's pompous. That's a bit of F. Murray Abraham. But yeah, it's true. I mean, some things that they've discussed in this article, well, there's a couple of things. One is that there's authors who are suing ChatGPT in a kind of parallel action that they think might be, indicative of the kind of direction that some people are going to try and go in.
Yeah.
So people like John Grisham, famous airport writer, who's obviously threatened because you could pretty easily get ChatGPT to do a John Grisham style novel, and George R.R. Martin, who's upset because he can't write anymore and just kind of keeps promising that he'll finish books and never does. So that I can see why he's triggered by it. They're suing ChatGPT. And then there's other people saying, oh, maybe you could do like an opt-out clause.
Oh, yeah, I read that.
You kind of go, don't use my data. And I just think, A, how the fuck are you going to enforce that? And B, like how are you even going to comply with it? Are they not allowed to, like, anytime it's viewing or kind of processing material that is, say, from a film, does it go, oh, this bit's got Julianne Moore in it, so I'll skip that, and then maybe I'll get in at the next scene? I mean, I just don't know how that works. And also,
you have to cut out all the scenes from The Big Lebowski that she's in. If you say, I want a real Big Lebowski vibe in my movie, and it goes, look, we can give you everything except the scenes with Julianne Moore. You can't have can't have her flying through the sky, flicking paint on the floor. You can't have her having sex with Jeff Lee Lebowski and then trying to get impregnated by raising her knees up to her chest and rolling back and forth. You can't have that in your
increases.
You can't have that conversation with Uli, the weird art guy, talking about the Biennale. That can't be in because Julianne has opted out. But Uli opted in so much. He real wants you to reference him.
Oh, he's a real tech head. So it's just that one-sided conversation that it can have, that it can process. I mean, the other thing is, I don't know, beyond the people who are cited in the press, who are these 10,000 signatories, but certainly the people mentioned skew a little bit older, which makes me think, are they just kind of, they don't really have their heads across what's going on? And Julianne Moore's like, get me out of the computers, please. And all the young people are like, well, this is just the way the wind's blowing, and it's like, what are we going to do? Because they know. It's tricky. I mean, because it will have, I presume, far-reaching consequences, especially once it gets really good. And I don't know. I saw a small example of it the other day. There was somebody who was talking about going to a Pilates studio and getting just a kind of AI Pilates lesson. So there was no real teacher at this gym.
Yeah.
And, so I guess celebrity fitness videos are probably out. I don't know that was a big source of income for Julianne or not, but
It's a whole bunch of already wealthy celebrities complaining about their ability to make money being threatened by the computers. Reminds me very much of Napster when that came in. Anybody who doesn't remember that, any of the kids, it's funny actually. There's like a window of people that won't understand Napster. Like actually, we're in the window that does understand it, whereas my parents won't really know what Napster was, and probably the people that are 20 years younger than us won't know what Napster was.
Yeah,
either.
That's right.
So everybody, let me take you on a journey back to about 1997, 98. I remember that was the first time that I saw Napster, and it was quite life-changing. I remember I was at my friend's house in North Adelaide, and he had a much better internet. We didn't have the internet at home until a bit later, but he had the internet and he had free reign on the family computer. So Napster, everybody, was when suddenly there was this brand new technology called MP3, which meant that you could take an audio file like a song on a compact disc, and that song on a compact disc in its compact disc form was enormous by dial-up bandwidth standards. And so if you pulled the CD version of Karma Police off
Mhm.
a Radiohead CD. It was like 4,400. It's like 44 meg or something, I reckon, for a song of like 3 or 4
Okay.
megabytes. And then
Yeah.
a wonderful German company called Fraunhofer came up with the MP3 technology, which shrunk it down to, you could compress it and get it essentially sounding to the layperson exactly the same as the CD version, but it would be 3 megabytes instead of 44. And that meant you could transfer it over dial-up without having to wait days to get the entire song. And then Napster came along.
I've never had it explained that succinctly, I don't think.
Yeah, and the way that it works, John, MP3 is very funny. The way that it works is they worked out at Fraunhofer that there are frequencies that we as humans don't pay attention to as much. This is obviously like unconsciously. It's not like you furrowing your brow going, what are the frequencies that I'm going to pay attention to in this song? And Fraunhofer worked out that there's a bunch of frequencies that we don't really pay attention to or need. And those frequencies are captured in the audio of a CD audio file. So what was happening was you have 44 megabytes of data, and tons of it they realized you could pull out because we don't really need it. So that's how the compression algorithm works. Is it looks at an audio file and it goes, okay, we don't need this, we don't need this, we don't need this, and it pulls out frequencies that we don't need and leaves us with the ones that we pay the most attention to. And of course, you can turn the compression up and down on MP3 files. You know, like a really shitty sounding one will be 99 kilobytes per second, and the really good ones are 320.
Yeah, I remember looking, being on those file sharing sites and looking at how many kilobytes the file was to get a sense of like, is this gonna be just
how watery is this gonna sound? That's the thing at MP3.
It's gonna be like I'm listening to Justin Timberlake through a wall, or is it like being at a concert?
It's like Justin Timberlake being drowned is what it's gonna sound like. Yeah, and then a university student in the United States was looking at all these cool MP3 technologies, and he built a little piece of software called Napster, which he then distributed through his university, I believe, initially, and allowed you to share files on your computer. So you just would have, I mean, this is just pretty standard to any kids these days, but it was pretty mind-blowing that you could have a program in 1997, 98, and you could say to that program, okay, I want to, every file that is in this folder on my computer, I want to make available and searchable to anybody else in the world. And then there could be Gary in China, and Gary would search for In Rainbows by Radiohead, and it would come up and it would say, yeah, that's on John's computer. And you'd have just left your computer open at high school. And then while you were at high school, and then Gary from China could just download the whole album MP3 and not pay a cent. And that made Lars Ulrich from Metallica very, very angry.
It did really upset Lars.
And he came out. He said, I don't have enough
peer to peer. I'm not into it.
He said, I don't have enough money, even though I come from an extremely wealthy Danish family, and we all just gallivant. Me and my father and my father's father and my father's father have always just gallivanted around playing tennis and having money fall out of the sky. And now I'm the drummer in Metallica, but I still don't have enough money. Yeah. So stop all the downloading.
That's great. Yeah, was it Sean Parker you were referencing before, that the college student?
No, Sean Parker. I remember him. I think Sean Parker's famously one of these people who sweeps in on what's happening on the internet. So he obviously became involved with Facebook after it had launched, and I think Napster's the same thing, where he's not the guy, but he was like hanging around the guy and had and
he's sort of great fodder because he was a bit handsome and swashbuckling. He was great fodder for kind of tech journalists at the time, being like, this is the bad boy of file sharing.
That's right.
Because all the All the others are just sort of dweeby and uncharismatic.
It's true. It's true. You need a Sean Parker. And Sean Parker was, I think Justin Timberlake played him in Social Network. But I mean, let's look back. Let's compare Napster to, that was a bit of a what would you call that? A moral panic, not a moral panic, a kind of like business panic.
Yeah, it was in terms of like, what does this mean for artists getting their dues, which was a legitimate question, which probably we never really answered satisfactorily.
Well,
and then you got
the answer,
Spotify,
the answer in terms of music became Spotify. And again, it just concentrated more power in the hands of the music labels. And now, like, if you're a young independent artist, if you're not one of the, if you're not in the 0.1% of musicians in the world, then you can't make a living from music. So
we get very little from Spotify. Don't Pay the Machine Spotify, even though we get fucking tons of downloads, but we get the old man Spotify just cuts us a check for 20 cents a year.
I didn't even know if that's a very good question. Does Spotify pay?
Don't know. Is there an account somewhere with money in it? I really need to access that account.
I don't know if we get paid by. That's a very good question, because I get paid for my songs on Spotify. I think I've made probably in my entire life. I reckon on Spotify I probably have. I reckon if I'm lucky, 200,000 plays on all of my pieces. All of my pieces across Spotify, and I reckon I've made maybe a bit over 100, maybe like $300 for my 200,000 from my 200,000 downloads.
What do you think
over the
what
years?
would be a just compensation? Maybe 10 cents a play.
I mean, 10 cents a play is a lot. If I would love 10 cents a play, but then
5 cents a play.
But then, the question is, how
do you make it work as a model?
How do you make it work if I'm paying $10 a month for Spotify? And how are you going? I mean, I would love to know how much Daniel Ek and the music mafia that he's in bed with, how much they're taking home every year. It's quite a lot of money.
Quite a lot of dosh. And this is the kind of next incarnation of that. I mean, the difference, I guess, is that humans are exiting the stage altogether, and except for on the kind of executive side of it. And I'm looking forward to seeing Julianne Moore and F. Murray Abraham side by side in a trench, just firing guns at the Skynet creatures advancing. We'll get like General Julianne Moore and Commander Tom York fighting Skynet.
What we're probably going to need is, like, forget about artists getting compensated, and everybody's just going to need some kind of universal basic income, because that's like that's really the what's about to. Well, who knows how quickly it's going to happen, but once
couldn't happen quick enough.
Once, like, I think that would be pretty funny if all those artists, instead of them coming out and saying we need to be compensated for our art, if they just said, guys, we desperately need universal basic income for everybody. That'd be a way to get the public more on board, is if it wasn't just a bunch of already millionaires saying.
Totally. Going, this was okay when it happened to factory workers, but now it's really starting to bite.
John, do you want to hear about me going to McDonald's? One of our favorite themes.
Love it.
On Dark Part of my
absolutely do. You didn't get E. coli, did you? There was an E. coli scare from quarter pounders recently.
No, I can't believe that. Don't you tell lies about Ronald.
I think it was the Hamburglar. He poisoned them as a part of the Hamburglar wars.
The hamburger. It's gone from hijinks into a dark place where the Hamburglars just started poisoning the burgers.
seeding patties with E. coli.
I went and saw the new Donald Trump film, The Apprentice, on Monday, which I quite enjoyed very much. Can recommend. And then afterwards, I thought to myself, you know what? I haven't been to McDonald's for a while because, as I've mentioned on the podcast before, it's getting very, very expensive. But in an effort to bring all of us McDonald's freaks back to our clown father Ronald, they've just introduced a little meal deal in Germany where you can get double cheeseburger, medium drink, medium fries for €4.99, which is not amazing, but it's by 2024 standards, it's pretty good. And so I watched the movie and I thought, you know what? I'm going to treat myself to that $4.99 meal. And I popped down to the McDonald's across from the Kaiser Wilhelm Memorial Church on Kudam. And I purchased my meal, as everybody does now, on the McDonald's kiosk screen. Have you used the kiosk screen recently, John? Do you have fresh in your memory the tips of your fingers rubbing up against cool glass as graphics move underneath? And you,
yep, I do. I do.
Which because you get you love every time I go to McDonald's with you just go fillet of fish 7 enter. You always get 7 fillet of fish.
It's true. I mean, they're not really burger sized, are they? I treat them like sort of biscuits.
They're tiny.
They're just thick biscuits.
I had my first one. I had my first one the other day because I had like a voucher. And it was fine. It was fine, but it was like I ate it in 2 bites. And the bun was so sweet. It was like it was like eating a cake with a fish patty in between 2
it
cakes.
It is basically fish cake, and then you go. Somehow I feel hungrier 20 minutes later than I did before I ate it. So that's why I need 7. And then I thank the ocean for its sweet bounty.
What's he called? Poseidon? Is that the guy? Thank you, Poseidon.
I pray to Neptune and Poseidon for the gift of 7 fillets of fish.
So I went up.
I hold my fillet of fish up to the local fisherman and just nod.
Thank you for this bounty. I went to the local McDonald's and I was reminded that I'm absolutely loving reading more and more about these screens at the moment and what the kiosks are doing for McDonald's in particular. As we push more and more humans into the fillet of fish grinder because we don't need them to help us out with serving McDonald's anymore. So I read that they were first tested in Europe in 2008, the self-serve kiosk screens. And today they're in almost all McDonald's restaurants, and as you would have seen in loads of other fast food restaurants. And there's a claim, they keep this very much under wraps at McDonald's, but there is a claim that they have increased McDonald's, I think like order value by something like 15%. And it's really interesting psychologically what's happening, which is quite different to if you were to have an interaction with a person at the counter.
Yeah.
You're presented when you first get up to it with the big, beautiful, colorful images. You're seeing like old school McDonald's. You'd look up, there'd be a few images of the burgers, but you're essentially looking at text on a board. And now you're walking up to this thing, and it's like, wow, I can see Big Mac. I can see Quarter Pounder, and they're all like beautiful on the screen. And they of course put the big expensive menus at the top of the screen. It doesn't say, oh, here's a first menu, cheeseburger, cheapest thing. No. It's like all the expensive ones are up there first.
Yeah, okay.
And And then when you choose items, and I didn't realize this, but when you select certain items and add them to your cart on these fast food kiosks, there's often a little animation which you might think is, that's just kind of a bit of like razzle dazzle,
Bells and
whatever.
whistles. Yeah.
But psychologically, that is rewarding you for what it wants you to do. So if you click a little Big Mac and it goes ooh and zips towards the cart with stars coming out of it or something, it's basically said to you, you've done the right thing. You're a good boy.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, okay.
Well done for choosing 7 Filet-O-Fish.
Yeah, I see. Like a poker machine with burgers.
Yeah, it very much uses a lot of that same psychology. And then the price total is very much down. It's down the bottom of the screen. So if you're adding, it's not going €7. It's not going like 12 euro. It's just right down the bottom. So you're not really paying attention to that until the end of your meal. And then obviously it upsells you as well, because apparently the profit margin on the actual burgers themselves is quite low, but it's high on the drinks and the fries and stuff like that. So that's why it always says,
it would be too.
It says, oh, you've chosen. So I'm just going to focus myself. It says at the end, do you want this? Do you want this? But I think the main
people who get 7 fillets of fish often get fries.
Yeah.
Do you want that?
Yeah. Do you want?
Is it that kind of deal?
And you go, I'm gonna need 7 large fries to stuff inside each of my 7 Filet-O-Fish. And then the other thing is one of the main things is that people spend fucking ages in front of these machines because you don't feel any pressure to get your order out of the way with the human and then run off.
Yeah.
You just stand there going, oh, let me just browse what else I can do. Some people stand there for fucking 10 minutes putting their order together, and of course you're adding more things if you're standing there. And then my favorite, which I love, which they talk about, you hide the shame of ordering.
I'm just gonna say that. Yeah,
a whole
if you're the kind of guy who orders too much things, you don't have a human going, sorry, did you say 5 quarter pounders? And you just by yourself in the restaurant.
Yeah, you don't have the person behind the counter going, who's that for? Who are you with? Where's your wife? What seat in this McDonald's restaurant is your wife sitting at? Point her out to me, please. Point out to me where your family is sitting.
Yeah, because you've ordered 2.5 pounds of meat here. You can't be eating it all.
So you can order as much as you want and not be judged. So it takes the shame away. So there's so many advantages to these restaurants of these things, and I do enjoy using them more than
interacting with Pimply McGee.
Yeah, I love going up to the screen and just caressing it. But I also love, like, I know all these tricks, and everybody who knows me will know that I love a bargain. So before I actually go into McDonald's, I know exactly what I'm going to order, and then I just say to myself, "That's it. There's nothing," because I know that if I get anything else, I've lost the battle against the McDonald's. So I go like this. Before I go into McDonald's, I push my chest out and I go, I'm going to just get the
I'm going
to get the $4.99 McSmart menu, cheese, double cheeseburger, Coke and fries, and that's it. And then I march up to the screen and then I just go, smart menu thing. And then it goes, would you like this? And I just go, nah.
Shut up.
I go, it's like when you when you're booking, anybody who's booked a fucking Ryanair flight or an EasyJet flight will know that after you book your flight, you just have to go, no. I go through 24 screens of upselling until
but wouldn't you like baggage insurance there, sir?
Don't you want more insurance? What if the plane crashed? Your whole what if your family was relying on you and the plane crashed? Don't you need insurance for that? So then I go nah, and then but I do get to hide my shame because I could go in there and get, when I was a kid, Go on.
The other thing you could get is probably like, I suppose you'd have to still deal with the staff packing this and handing it to you. That's the bit they need to sort out. I want to have it just through a slot.
Yeah.
I don't need to see anyone's face.
Yeah, well, there won't be staff soon, so that'll be great because what will happen is you'll go in and you won't even have the screen. It would just go, "Oh, will you let us scan your mind?" And you go, "Yes, Ronald." And then
It will say, "I've scanned your subconscious, and what you truly want is a double cheeseburger."
What? Just press what I truly want on the screen, and then
Deepest yearning.
and then it scans your mind, and then and then it'll get made by a robot, and it will get made by robot. I mean, they're already experimenting with. There's a whole bunch of companies at the moment that are very heavily invested in creating robots for the food industry. So behind closed doors, there's a lot of testing going on, seeing, it will start obviously with, there'll be certain parts of the food preparation process that can be automated first. There'll be things that the challenge is not that great. And then, but you'll start seeing, okay, well, fries can be made by a robot. Okay, McFlurry can be made by a robot. And you start seeing less and less and less staff until there's just one dude, Greg. There's just Greg. There's always...
For your more bespoke orders, you need Greg. If you say to the machine, is there some way you could put the chips in with the fillet of fish? And he'll go, yeah, that's a job for Greg.
Can you picture? This is a funny image. I've been many times to a McDonald's in the wee hours of a Saturday morning in Adelaide or London, and everybody's drunk and everybody wants McDonald's, and you end up in a McDonald's with like fucking shitloads of people who are all hammered, and they all are loud, and they all want McDonald's, and the staff are frantically running around trying to like flick everybody their McDonald's, and the floor. It's typically like the dirtiest McDonald's I've ever seen. I remember going to the McDonald's on West Terrace in Adelaide, which used to be next to Heaven nightclub. And on Saturday night, there was you were ordering your McDonald's, and for some reason you were up to your ankles in some nondescript liquid at the counter,
totally. And just stepping over people who've passed out. Like if somebody just took a dump in the line, it wouldn't be that big a deal. Really,
it's true.
That's the kind of atmosphere.
But imagine what's going to happen soon is there'll be that same scene. There'll be like fuckloads of people on a Saturday, and there'll be no humans. There'll just be tons of people going in to grab their stuff, and they'll just be coming out of chutes. There'll just be chutes and screens. It's the chutes and screens and people going,
"Come on, mate, you've been there for fucking 10 minutes. Work it out."
Yeah.
And all spreading disease from the screens, all their grubby mitts all over the screens.
So you go into like a McDonald's, and it'll just go, okay, this is the order 264, and it will literally come out of a chute. Because I know how much ever since you send me those photographs of those automatic like food dispensaries, the automats from like the 40s and 50s. Yeah. That's always been your dream. You said to me, I'd like to start a podcast out that's mostly about food automats.
The automats.
I said,
bringing back automats.
Can we make it a little bit more broad and just make it more about technology?
And I reluctantly agreed. Yeah, ever since I saw there's an Edward Hopper, great kind of mid-century American artist, Edward Hopper, did Nighthawks. He's got one of a woman in an automat, and it just looks like they're kind of the personification of human loneliness. And I thought that looks like the venue for me. Just chutes and kind of impersonal metal surfaces. And that's what it'll be. Yeah, I mean, there's always a kind of I remember certain nights where there was something fun about the ritual of kind of finishing drinking, going to the McDonald's, and there was this sort of atmosphere of revelry, people waiting in the line. Maybe there'd be "How you going, mate? You had a good night?"
Yeah.
And then, I mean, look, I'm not saying that's a great loss to the culture because it was a pretty bad experience, but it was an experience, and I'm not sure that that the screens and shoots will quite compare. And you'll just get someone getting their frontal lobes zapped to find out what their deepest yearning is.
7 fillet of fish is what's going to be for you.
That's right.
Oh, how'd
Exactly.
you know? You always get it right. Thanks, McDonald's brain scan. You always get it right.
Fillet o fish.
Fillet.
Bzzz.
Fillet o fish. But you go to McDonald's when you are on mostly driving trips these days. You said it's a little treat that you get for being a good boy, being quiet in the car, and you're usually just
not asking too many questions.
Jacinta just puts you in the front seat with an iPad and a bunch of Coco Melon videos on YouTube, and you keep quiet.
Yeah. And soon, I mean, as we've discussed on the show, it'll be a wraparound experience. I'll have a car which is just automatic, driven by a robot, and it will know when I'm hungry, and it will say to me, "There's a McDonald's coming up in 2 kilometers," and I'll say thanks, and it'll say, "You want 7 fillets of fish, don't you?" And you'll say, "Do I?" And it will say, "Yeah, trust me, you do," and just drive in there. And they'll be just shooted directly into your mouth as you lie prostrate in the back of your robot car.
I had 2 people write to us in the week. Last week, actually, this week, I had my friend Mari write me on Facebook, and she said, "Have you heard of this new song?" And I said, "Yes." The reason I've heard of that new song is because Harley wrote to us in the Discord group and said, "Do you know about this song?" And it's a song called 10 Drunk Cigarettes. Did you listen to it in the Discord group, John?
Yeah, I did. Thanks, Harley.
Yeah, thanks, Harley. So I figured, just going off the data, we got 2 listeners that want us to talk about something, then probably it means from the data, that's good feedback. Everybody's gonna...
There'll be there'll be a bunch of silent DPTMers who just quietly are hoping that we'll talk about it.
That's right. And it ties into what you were talking about earlier with Tom York and the musicians, because it's a AI generated song which blew up on TikTok, and I don't know if I can play it. If I can, it's going in here. If I can't, then then you won't hear it, and I'm going into the next bit because I just need to maybe work out if we're going to get copyright stung, because it is on Spotify. But 10 Drunk Cigarettes, there's a New York Times article I found written about it. It blew up on TikTok. It's by apparently a trio that call themselves like Girly Girls. Where is it? Girly Girl Productions. You can actually, I won't play it. You can go and listen to it yourselves, everybody. It's on Spotify. It's Girly Girl Productions. And it has 2.6 million streams, which is a lot. To me, it sounds almost entirely AI generated. They might have done the lyrics themselves, but it blew up on TikTok apparently, and it's really, really catchy. The intro very much sounds like YouTube stock music from about 5 years ago with this gleeful whistling intro. And then it's very much like girl empowerment in the verse.
Yeah.
And then the chorus is all about like going crazy in the evening and smoking cigarettes and drinking and doing cocaine. And it's
doing coke.
It's really, really catchy. But the interesting thing about it is that people love it, and people are streaming out 2.6 million streams for something that essentially sounds pretty much like a bunch of text prompts. And 2.6 million streams means that we're getting closer and closer to a moment where there will be an entirely AI generated song, which will just be the most popular song in
the
world.
this 10 Drunk Cigarettes, it's not fully AI generated, but you're saying
I
it is.
don't know if it's fully. I mean,
Okay.
it's hard. It's hard even to define what.
Yeah.
Like if you know, if you give something a text prompt and then it gives you a result, and you give it another text prompt and it gives you a result, and then you give it another text. So you've basically given it like 3 sentences. Do you get to say that that's fully AI generated? What I'm saying is they may have adjusted the lyrics. They may have written, because I know that Suno AI and Udio allow you to write your own lyrics, but the lyrics to this are so kind of silly that
they're a bit weird.
They're a bit weird. It also makes me think that they may have been generated.
Yeah, me too.
By AI.
They've got that kind of like, they're written as if by somebody who just doesn't quite get the context of what they're saying.
Yeah.
And that's always a telltale sign.
Yeah.
Like the kind of very direct reference to just kind of doing coke, which is a bit sort of out of step with the tone of the song.
Yeah, which is
but
what
I think
makes
that's part
it
of
really
the
funny.
appeal.
Yeah, that is part of the appeal, is that it's this very upbeat, almost like country pop song, but she's talking about doing cocaine, and it's really catchy. And Spotify have obviously allowed it to be on their platform, which means that these Girly Girl Productions are making the profit from it, I must imagine. Because I think there was some talk that when a bunch of these AI generated songs started getting to a standard where they were quite listenable, I think there was some talk that the streaming platforms were going to do something about it, because it's it's such a contentious area at the moment. But this has got 2.6 million streams on Spotify, and honestly, I just don't think there's anything you can do, because what are you gonna, if I've used one trumpet sound that was generated by AI in a song, are you gonna how would you know, and B, are you gonna pull that down? But if I use 100% AI, there's just
and what even, I mean, as the products and ways of tweaking and augmenting things proliferate, what do you consider permissible use of AI versus impermissible use? And what do you even consider AI versus kind of advanced production techniques, which use maybe in the way that they flatten sound or bring, adjust levels or whatever, they use a kind of AI structure or AI process. I mean, I don't know quite how you enforce it, but that aside, it does raise a weird question, doesn't it? Because it's like you're getting compensated even at the sort of paltry level that Spotify compensates you, but it's compensating you on the presumption that you've done some kind of level of work, which might vary. Like you maybe haven't played all the instruments, you might be an electronic music maker, but you've done composition. Whereas what are these people doing? Just putting a prompt in and then getting a result.
You're right, John. It's compensating you on the understood model of what it took for an artist back in the day to create an entire piece of music. It's saying it's based off, you must have spent hours learning how to make music. You must have spent money on equipment. You spent money on promotion and marketing and all these kinds of things, and it's compensating you based on that. But if it's a sentence, then that's a model that's broken.
Yeah, and what's to stop someone just prompt farming, like putting millions of songs on Spotify?
Yeah, well,
and that's like, some of them are shit or average. Most of them are probably like fine, and then some will catch on. But like, if you just flood the system, you'll get some hits, and the money will start coming in.
Well,
or even if you put like a ton of songs up and they all do okay, then that might all just go back to the same, Russian prompt farming mogul.
What if you flood the system with thousands of songs that are all really good? Because like this 10 Drunk Cigarettes, it's obviously based off pop. It just sounds like a pop song from maybe 10 years ago, a pop country song. It's got very recognizable but slightly dated elements. It doesn't sound like something that would come out today from a pop star. But obviously what it's doing is it's going, well, I'm going to base this song off what I know was extremely popular. And so what it ends up spitting out is something that we recognize as being enjoyable and is giving us dopamine hits. And that's just going to end up happening more and more and more. Is that like more of these generation platforms will make songs that are just very pleasant to our ear because it knows from the data. It goes, well, this was number one, this was number one, this was number one. So I'm just going to spit something out that has these kind of chord progressions and these tones and textures in it. If you just tell an AI, like take all, I have a playlist in Spotify, for example. Maybe we'll put it in the Discord. Guys, if you want Al's Jangle Pop 80s playlist, get on the Patreon and you can get my 80s Jangle Pop and Jangle Pop adjacent playlist. I could just take those, I think there's like 40 songs in there, and I could like right click in Spotify and go, generate me one song, which is just all of these amazing 40 Jangle Pop hits squished together. And it's going, maybe not right now.
It's going to be good.
Nothing is going to stop that from being just this fucking amazing Jangle Pop anthem that is going to give me so many feelings that it's probably going to give me more feelings than I've ever had from any Smith song or any Go-Between song or any Prefab Sprout song. It's going to be, I won't be able to move for the tears that'll be streaming out of my face.
You're going to be crying at the McDonald's terminal. Just
imagine you sitting there with Otis Redding squished with Bob Dylan. You've got 7 fillet-o-fish on your lap, and you're enjoying your fillet-o-fish, and it's also squishing all your favorite artists together.
Yeah, that'll be the name of the song. 10 drunk cigarettes and 7 fillet-o-fish.
Moby's first 4 albums. Remember, you got the Moby box set?
I did have a Moby box set. Probably some Soundgarden.
Yeah.
Tool.
Yeah.
And of course, Radiohead, even though I know that Tom's not going to like it. Sorry, Yorkie. It's happening. It's the future. You're in there too.
Yorkie bar.
I like the idea of the opt-out, though, because I did think what'll happen if everyone somehow does manage to get into an opt-out scheme is you'll get just like people who are a bit shit or a bit old and kind of old intellectual property where people don't bother.
Yeah.
And that will be what it scrapes from. So the results will just be weird, kind of like old schlocky B movies from the 50s. It will just be all the plots that are thrown up by AI, which I quite like in its own way. But I don't know. Al, this conversation is making me think it's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine.
Man, I was listening to a lot of REM last week as well. What a great band. We want to say thank you, Michael Stipe, for making the songs that we love.
Michael, did you sign the letter as well?
Michael, write us in, and he bloody would. He'd be absolutely. I think he's also very good. I think he's friends with Tom York too.
Michael Stipe. There's no substitute for the creative process. He'd say.
We can't just give ourselves over to the computers.
He'll say,
get me out of the computer. Get me out of the computer.
Martha Hoople in the game of life. That's what it was.
Guys, get me out of the computer.
Yeah.
Stop it, that's my song. Stop.
Guys, stop it, that's my song.
Andy, are you goofing on Elvis Lane, baby?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It'll be ChatGPT, are you goofing on Stipey?
Are you goofing? That's right, ChatGPT, are you goofing on Stipey, baby? Are we losing touch? Guys, if you want Alexander Holland's 80s jangle pop and classics and jangle pop adjacent contemporary songs, well, you can always find us on Discord and become a Patreon member. DPTM. Just search DPTM Patreon. You'll find us. John, what are you going to do now for the rest of your Thursday?
I've got a Thursday night beer lined up with my friends Ant and Marty. And I think they're occasional podcast listeners. And of course, I'm going to do a classic marketing trick. I'm going to say, I mentioned you on this week's episode.
Yeah, good trick.
You got to get in there.
And they just get one. They get a tiny mention right at the very end.
A tiny mention at the end. And I'll say to them, I defy you not to sign up to the top tier Patreon if you're a real friend of mine.
Can you say something unique about each of those men right now that will have them coming away from having listened to the whole episode thinking, oh, I loved it when he said that about me. It was very specific to me. Talk about what they look like. Just talk about their
Making me real
haircuts.
nervous. They're both.
Oh, they're both friends of mine.
They're both. Yeah, one of them has brown eyes. In fact, they probably have both brown eyes, and they're just real good mates. They love a beer and a chat.
The most generic thing. You're gonna love this.
It's like classic sort of dating profile. They love hanging out with mates, and they're just regular knockabout good blokes.
They're knockabout guys. I think one of them's favorite film is Shawshank Redemption, and the other one's favorite band is Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, they love the Peps. They love one of them's. You should see how much they love pepperoni pizza.
That's great.
One of them's favorite soft drink is Coke.
I bet one of them is going to go, how do you know? I really do like Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, exactly. We've never discussed that.
Shawshank Redemption is a great film. Every time I make fun of Shawshank Redemption, I get messages from people going, Shawshank Redemption is a good film. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I understand it's a good film. It is one of the best films ever made. The reason it's funny is because when you meet people, they're a little bit dull. They will try and trick you into thinking that they're a bit smart by going,
you know what movie I really like?
Shawshank Redemption. And then you're supposed to go, oh, wow, you're such a deep and every and we always joke that every Adelaide Crows player in the early 2000s, when I would read the Adelaide Crows magazine, every fucking interview with an Adelaide Crows player, they'd go, my favorite movie is Shawshank Redemption. You're just like, no, it's not. No, it's not Mark Rasciuto.
I'm not just a ruckman. I've got feelings.
I've got feelings too. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been Don't Praise the Machine for the end of October, and we can't wait to see you next week.
The podcast.